Douglas Murray. Just want to ask you about what's been going on back home here in the UK with Suella Braverman making these comments about the bias of the police, not choosing to ban this pro-Palestinian demonstration planned to take place this Saturday in the afternoon, not next to the Cenotaph, but on the day that is Armistice Day, one of the most, let's face it, sacred days in the British calendar, when we mark our fallen heroes who've given us the rights to do things like, you know, protest in the streets. Suella Braverman says the police are basically playing favourites. Even the Prime Minister has criticised the police, called Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Chief, to his office in Number 10 yesterday. Basically, word is he's saying, look, you should ban these marches, but if you're not going to, on your head be it if something happens. What do you make of Suella Braverman's language? What do you make of the decision of the Met Police to allow this march to go ahead?
I can't quite understand the treatment of Suella Braverman in the UK. It's extraordinary to me. She uses perfectly sensible, reasonable language to describe incredibly unsensible and unreasonable people, and is forever defamed by people as if she is spouting the most unbelievable far-right rhetoric. I mean, the criticism of her is endless. It's weird because, I mean, the same thing was done against Priti Patel in recent years when she was Home Secretary. It's a very strange treatment, as if anyone who's Home Secretary and actually has the interests of the British people at heart is in some way doing something unforgivable. I have to say I don't quite understand
There's a lot of pearl clutching at everything she says, isn't there? When did you say most people are saying she's saying the quiet bit out loud?
Well, she's not even saying the particularly quiet bit. She's saying the obvious bit out loud. The Metropolitan Police is meant to protect the British public. And what happens time after time, whether it's Extinction Rebellion, end-time eco-cult lunatics, or Hamas on the streets of the UK, the Metropolitan Police seem to let them get away with it. I mean, you know, we just had one of our great national treasures, the Roque Venus of Velázquez, in the National Gallery, once again attacked, this time by two young maniacs with hammers who smashed into this unbelievably important masterpiece with hammers. And, you know, they get away with it. They almost certainly get away with it because the last couple of people who did that ended up at getting a 500 quid fine for gluing themselves to a Van Gogh. This is a very shorthand example of what's happening in the UK at the moment. There's this weird standard on policing, and absolutely the Home Secretary is right to call it out. If you or I, Julia, or anyone else was to go onto the streets and call for the murder of any minority group, we would be arrested, we would be fined, we would be charged, we'd be bundled into the back of a police van. Well, as it happens, it wouldn't have occurred to either of us to do so. But why is it that week after week there are people on the streets of Britain calling for jihad? I send these out online all the time. There's sermon after sermon at mosque after mosque across the UK calling for jihad in the UK, calling for the extermination of the Jewish state, calling for the downfall of Britain. None of these people get their collars felt by the Met or any of the other police forces. Why is it that when people on the streets of London call for jihad, that we end up with the Metropolitan Police issuing a statement saying that their crack Quran interpretation squads at Central Met HQ have come up with a brilliant idea that saying jihad means a lot of different things, according to them. According to Inspector Plod, a big bearded fella shouting, "Jihad, jihad, slay the infidels," on the streets of London, it could be saying that he's about to have an inner spiritual struggle with the precise nature of the deity.
I mean,
well, it doesn't take Douglas Murray to get riled up, does it? I mean, and anybody else, folks. I mean, we all would get riled up if crap like this was occurring. You've got the police, like Douglas Murray was saying, that they are not doing a damn thing to protect the British citizens. And I feel your pain over there. I feel your pain, my brothers, on the other side of the pond, so to speak. The same damn thing happens on this side of the Atlantic. Exactly the same thing. There's different tiers of justice. For the average man, for the common person, you, me, people in what we call flyover country, if we were to ever do anything like that, like Douglas was saying, and there's no consequences for anybody, that's a problem. You just get a little slap hole on the wrist, a little fine, $300, $500, $1,000. They're going to get their people that's going to give to their causes, and they'll be able to pay the fine. And then the next person thinks and says, well, you know what? All they did was throw some paint on a painting, or they glued their hands to a wall, and they went to court. They got their notoriety, they got their publicity, they got their names out, their causes out there. Someone says, you know what? I'll just go inside. Next time, what I'm going to do is maybe I'll do something like that, or I'll use a couple of rocks and a hammer and break through some glass and destroy something else on my end. And someone's gonna do that because all you're gonna do is get a slap on the wrist. The judge is gonna basically what? Lecture you for a little bit, saying you shouldn't be doing things like that, you naughty boy or girl, and you'll be on your way. There's no accountability for anything, neither in the law nor in the persons that are doing it. They don't care. They want to do this and they want to cause mayhem. They want to cause disturbance. Same thing. I mean, and then like I said, different levels of justice, different tiers of justice. Of course there is. If you're entitled, if you're at that high privileged elite class, if you're, of the government class, oh, you're in government or whatever, oh, you get shielded all the time. Nothing's going to happen to you. But average guy, oh, the handcuffs are going to come on, just like Doug was saying. They're going to send the police out to investigate because now they got these stupid ass laws in Great Britain that if you say something and, you hurt someone's feelings, you can be jailed or you can be fined for that. So rapes, murders, robberies, nobody's going out for those things. Oh, but somebody basically called in and said that, somebody said that I was an idiot or I was too fat or I don't fit into my clothes or that I'm a man or I'm a woman and I'm not a man, I'm a woman, I'm not a man. And, they transgendered me wrong. They identified me wrong. They used the wrong pronoun for me. You're going to have the SWAT team outside in front of you and then hands to your face is going to be pressed down on the curb. It's going to be a knee in your neck. You're going to have your hands behind you. It's going to be asking you all kinds of questions. Where you've been, what are your affiliations with any terrorist groups? And you're just the average Joe, the average Jane, sitting out there. And like you said, nobody wants to take accountability. Nobody wants to do a damn thing. And nobody wants to be on the end saying that, oh, they're just a bunch of, phobes. They're racist. They're bigots. They didn't allow us to, march. They didn't allow us to do anything. And with the guy shouting jihad on the street, it only means one thing, folks. It only means one thing. 99% of the time, the jihad, okay, it's during wartime, but they're using it to me. And if someone says, jihad, 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 death to the infidels, death, if they're talking like that, then you don't need to have a crack squad of interpreters. You just go with what the guy is basically saying. Anyways, folks, that's what we have on tap for you today. More of Douglas Murray coming up. But before that, you're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, where I give you my political prescription from my political perspective of what happens when all these things collide. Douglas Murray, culture, religion, government, politics, jihad, all these things come crashing together. Let's get to more of the interview with Douglas right now.
This is the mad territory we are in. But if we have, and we're told, veterans, some football hooligans, we're told EDL, Tommy Robinson are sending people saying, look, go to the Senate office, even though the Senate office is not on the route, it must be stressed, not on the route of this march, and the 11 o'clock, the march starts later. They say they're worried about the police aren't going to protect this, this sacred memorial to our fallen war heroes. They feel, on the most important weekend of the year for them, that they feel they need to go and do that job themselves. If and when, let's face it, when there is trouble, we know who's going to get blamed, don't we?
Yeah, look, let me put this at its straightest. We have had 2 decades and more of whining from members of the Muslim community about their sacred places and sacred ideas. We have learned that you can't write novels if it offends any Muslim. You can't draw a cartoon if it offends any Muslim. You can't publish a book or make a speech if it offends any Muslim. Okay, we've had decades of this now. Some of us are completely bored of it and think that in any case it was a con trick all along. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the deal. We have sacred places too. We have sacred places too. One of them is the cenotaph. One is Remembrance Day. One is when we remember the fallen of 2 world wars. Those are our sacred places. And you think you can trample on them? You think you can prod us and insult us by marching on those days with your hate and your anti-Semitism and your anti-British sentiment? No. No, okay. We played fair. And they're not. The people doing the Million Man March are not playing fair at all. And the British public can see it. And I have said for a long time, if the British police will not protect the British public, if the British police will not protect, then it is up to somebody else. And it looks to me very much like the British public have realised that the Met Police and others recognise, and one of them said this on camera last week, that they're outnumbered at the anti-Israel protests. They're outnumbered. They don't know what to do, Julia. They're scared. They're terrified. Some of them, you can see it in the faces of the older cops, are pissed as hell that they are having
certainly
to put up
are.
with this as young thugs scream insults in their face and taunt them. They don't look like they're enjoying this one bit. But here's the thing. If the Met don't look after the public and our monuments and sacred places, then it falls to the public to do so. And they might include people that you and I would not like, Julia. But this is what happens when law and order breaks down. This is what happens when the police will not police. This is what happens when the police allow people to call for the murder of people on British streets if they happen to be Muslim people doing the chanting, and would be round at your house in a nanosecond if you happened to be an autistic girl, for instance, who had said that a particular lesbian-looking cop looked like their lesbian nana. You'd get 9 people coming out to your house and hauling you out if you were that autistic girl. But you can be a big bearded jihadi calling for jihad and the massacre of Jews anywhere in the UK, and you're fine. Well, lots of people have noticed that, and we do not like it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think an awful lot of people will feel exactly the same way. They say, all we want is the police and the government to do their job.
And can I just say one other thing very quickly, Julia? I'm in a country here at the moment, Israel, that is protecting itself and protecting its population. And I don't care to hear all the analysis from armchair pundits and others about what they should do and what they shouldn't. But I have a challenge to the British public on this. Why don't we learn to protect the British people as well? The Israeli government knows how to look after the Israeli people. The British government should know how to look after the British people. They should put us first, not everybody else.
Absolutely. Hear to that. Douglas Murray, live for us from Israel.
Words of wisdom, words of caution from Douglas Murray, basically saying that, you know what, sometimes this is what happens when law and order breaks down. What do you think is happening on the southern border of the United States of America, where you've got militia and just armed ranchers protecting their own homestead, protecting their own boundaries of their own home from the illegal aliens and the cartels that are coming across at an absolutely alarming pace. And the government doesn't give a freaking crap about that. They could care less. It's not America first. It's not even America second, third. We're not even in the top 10 American citizens. I don't think we're in the top 100. You could list a whole bunch of other things, entities, people, ethnicities, all kinds of things. Religion, you can make them all there. That the Biden administration and both the Republicans and the Democrats on this, before they do a single damn thing to help the American people, the American citizen, the average Joe, the average Jane, flyover country, they could give a crap about that. Different tiers of justice for who you are. If you're a terrorist, nobody gives a crap. They'll just fine you. You want to go throw oil on a painting? Yeah, just a couple of bucks and you're on your way. You want to disrupt a college meeting? Oh, nobody cares. You want to sit in the middle of the street and block a highway off a major highway? Nothing. But you haul off on somebody like that, basically try to get rid of that person in front of you, move them off the street or whatever. And, you may just be you're the one that might be charged with, with some type of crime for, getting somebody out of the way or using excessive force or whatever. So when Douglas is talking about that, sometimes there are groups out there that you just absolutely would never want to associate yourself with. These are why some of these groups come out, because they say nobody else is helping us. Like, you hate to see when that thing happens, but that's what happens when law and order breaks down, as Douglas was saying. And that's what's happening on this side of the pond and on the other side of the Atlantic, over in, Great Britain. Because they're all freaking chicken and afraid. The police are afraid. The politicians are afraid. Afraid nowadays to say the truth. No, talk about delusions. That's okay. That's what we got to be at. Because that small minority has got such a huge majority voice, it seems like. Because they're controlling media. They're controlling academics. They're controlling, the news organizations, the Google alphabets. You know what we're talking about. So until somebody, until, you know, people are jailed for doing these kinds of things and arrested and put through the ringer, so to speak, at least so people say, you know what, if I do this, I realize, okay, that I could get charged, I could be arrested, I could be detained. And then you fight out in court to find out whether or not your civil rights or things were, you know, treaded upon or not. There's free speech, and then there's not so free speech, what it's called incite for riot, incite to violence. It's going to cause destruction, it's going to cause harm. Those are completely different. And what about all the anti-racist laws that they have? They're anti-Semitic laws they have in England, that people, and they're still out there chanting anti-Semitic tropes in crowds and marches. All kinds of things are going on. Unbelievable, folks, unbelievable. Anyways, you've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Nasir. We appreciate you taking the time to watch. If we've earned it, we certainly would hope you go ahead and subscribe to our channel for more content. Take a look at our other videos, links here and below. My final thought is always, when you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.